Hey, there you are.
Okay, we're all back.
We're back.
But I don't have permission to record now. But
I'm recording it, so worst case, I can have one for you. All right, we still have 50 minutes. It's reset. Hope everyone did a bio break. This goes on.
So God Stole Us Love is going to give us a screen presentation. That's where we were at.
Yeah.
All right. Yep. So I think I'll just kind of start over my proposal. Probably the best thing. Okay. So smart start proposal. Sort of my idea going into this is like, how can I help people to collaborate so that we can all provide the most value to both Eden and EOS, and do it in a collaborative way, and also to reward those first collaborators. So the key points of the proposal are, number one, we're going to have a Meta Eden GitHub, and perhaps we can do this on the EOS community GitHub page, or else, you know, that probably makes the most sense, but we could always make a new one. And to run this GitHub, we're going to have Eden Elders. And basically that's just the name for the repo administrators. But in order to be able to administer this repo, you have to be a coder, you have to have leadership experience, and you have to be a community member for at least 1 year. And finally, as a sort of like bonus to add value, I'm going to offer up my tree proposal structure as the first markdown contribution. And this is a structure that I developed for another project, but I think it's a way that we can sort of visually represent these proposals, right? I'm a very visual thinker. I do things visually, so that's sort of where I want to push this. So you may be thinking, like, why do we need a GitHub to organize ideas about Eden and EOS? If we already have Telegram, we already have the EOS community site, et cetera, et cetera. What I've observed is that there are many good ideas floating around, but often they're not very collaborative. For example, if somebody posts something in Telegram, you can maybe reply and hopefully sort of snowball a bigger idea, but chances are it's going to get lost in the Telegram chat history. Now, eoscommunity.org is way better. We can sort of go back to these ideas. You can make edits. People can comment. There's more of a flow. But I think that we can do a little bit better and also use GitHub as sort of a bridge to bring in the more, I guess, hardcore coders who want to have their idea heard and want to do it in a way that other people can, you know, create pull requests, create changes, open up issues, and things like that. So how the repo is going to work is it's going to have folders which have significant issues. And some of the ones that I've identified actually came from Mr. Barnes's, I guess, summary of the last election, where, you know, he identified a few things that we can work on. So these would all be a folder. And then within that folder, people can upload usually a markdown file explaining their sort of suggestions, right? So the easiest way to see the value in this is the proposal structure itself. Now, this proposal structure I got from Joshua Seymour on Telegram, because we were sort of talking about that. But if I hadn't have gotten it, it might have just got lost in the chat history, or if I wasn't there, it would be lost in the chat history. So what Josh could do is he could contribute to this GitHub repo by uploading his folder, which would then be accepted by the Eden elders into the sort of garden of ideas, which then people can build from these ideas to create future proposals, right? So we have non-intellectual property, which is all these ideas. And these are like seeds that from people who may not want to seek leadership, but do want to have their ideas heard. And then anybody else in the community can then take these ideas and you know, create a proposal out of them and hopefully get them funded. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'd love to hear questions as well as ideas to improve.
How is this different than, say, like a Slack?
Well, because you have the collaborative aspects and you don't get things don't get lost in the chat history, right? So it's like when you have the Git protocol, you can go back and you can see every single time, every single diff, every line that's different. Slack is a robust offering, but for example, I've never been in the Eden Slack. I think that the more that we sort of separate these sort of things, and I know I'm suggesting another separation, but the more we separate, the more ideas get lost. And if we have a GitHub repo that's, especially if it's in the EOS community GitHub, it's right next to the actual source code of Eden. People know, okay, this is a robust place for ideas. And yeah, I forgot to mention, I'm taking 30% of the prize money, and it's going to go towards the first 12 meaningful contributors of the repo to sort of incentivize people to share their ideas in this way.
Yeah, I would agree with you. One of the things that I have issues with or have problems with is there are so many different places. We got a Discord, we got the EOS, the community forum. Things get lost. There's just no way that you can. We really, and I know it's probably coming with on EOS, even on EOS software, that it's going to be in one central place. But I know that there are so many things that I'm missing out on, different Telegram groups or Discord groups or Slack or whatever. So I understand what you're saying, and I think that'd be a great thing to do. More of a at least a central clearinghouse for information, I guess, is maybe what you're talking about. So yeah, so I like that.
I'm trying to understand what's exactly is going to be in the GitHub.
So the GitHub has a series of folders, and each of the folders represent one issue. For example, what Chris mentioned a bunch of issues and sort of the summary he posted a few days ago, I think. So each one of these would have a folder. And I mentioned onboarding, DeFi, usability, the project proposal format would be one. But really, I think the key point here is these are more soft issues. I say in the proposal, we're not trying to change the source code. We're not trying to change anything that's in a different repo, right? What we want is we want people who have ideas. I have ideas, and I want to share them, but also I know other people have ideas and want to share them. So what I'm trying to do is build a place where we can plant these little ideas as seeds in a non-intellectual property way, basically giving it to the community, but in a way that's a little bit more formal than and collaborative than, say, the EOS community or Telegram.
So to share those ideas in form of code, because
a .md, like a markdown format,
okay.
is suggested. Yeah. So within markdown format, you can have blocks of JavaScript or whatever you need to do. But again, like we'll see where people go with this, but I imagine it's going to be more of the soft side of things. Like, for example, how can we onboard maybe the youth demographic, or how can we be more, bring people over from Wax? So people could sort of suggest, okay, well, I'm part of this project, or, I think we should have a collaboration drop with Wax. And then another person could see what they posted and say, oh, that's great. I'm going to include that in my proposal in the next election and hopefully get funding for it, as well as the bylaws. So, if you're in a leadership position, there's going to be a folder for bylaws where anybody can sort of suggest bylaw change, and then other people can collaborate on that. And then obviously it's the leader who can change the bylaws. So something like that.
Okay. Do we want to go through our proposals before we get?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you want to go see XNVK or do you want me to go? I'll give you the option.
Go first.
Okay, I will share screen. So my proposal is I want to try to aggregate the community. And so I want to do that through an Eden members proxy. So it's kind of like another one of those baby step approaches, similar to the first time we had an election where it was an attempt to try to solve a small bite. So the idea would be to have an Eden members proxy, and the proxy itself would be approved and the BPs essentially would be curated by the Eden members themselves. So it would be the proxy of the people in the EOS ecosystem. We would have various KPI that would select the BPs, but the most important KPI would be actually the subjective perspective of the Eden members themselves. So instead of looking so much at the actual objective metrics that are typically used, we would actually use the opinions of the people, of the Eden members themselves. To do that, EOS Costa Rica has put up this eosrate.io tool, which is basically a tool that you sign in with your EOS account. So we would ask Eden members to sign in with their Eden account, and they can then subjectively pick their BP's preferences and the respective metrics that are available here. And so those KPIs that are available on that site are transparency, trustiness, they call it, community, and then development and infrastructure. There's 5. So the idea is that a few of us would work on this proxy and we would provide access to anyone so we want to inform the voters, the Eden members, of what we find and what the performance of the different BPs are and what they're doing. So we'd provide a source, a site somewhere that would have all this data aggregated for ease of access. We would encourage basically block producers to participate with this endeavor. So we want to basically try to build bridges between the East and the West, first of all. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what the Eastern BPs are doing from the West because we don't hear about it. And if we don't hear something, that comes across as maybe negative. So ideally, I would look to, or we, whoever takes this initiative, would look to interview BPs and do sort of an expose on the BPs that hopefully they would want to do. Hopefully BPs are doing some good things, and we can then highlight that where otherwise there is no source of truth that someone could go to in the EOS ecosystem to sort of see each of the BPs and have a representation of what they're doing. We want to help token holders stay well informed. That's key, in fact. So because we want the Eden members to be able to make informed, conscientious votes as opposed to rationally ignorant or just not participating at all. So in order to come up with some of the objective KPI, I would look to basically have a meeting with various BPs that are within Eden and use their expertise to come up with a set of actual KPI that they think are useful metrics that are objective to measure BP performance. And then we would aggregate that. And part of the objective data sources, we would use what EOS Nation has. They've got a scorecard that looks like this. Aloha EOS also has a research portal and benchmarks that look like this. And I believe there are additional tools that aren't even fully out yet, but are coming. And then what I'd like to do is once the proxy operators come up, monthly, we would come up with a list of BPs to vote for based on the subjective input from the Eden members mixed with the KPI that are objective. And once a month, hold a meeting with the Eden board and present them with the data, present them with the list, and have them approve that list for the subsequent month in a 2/3+1 vote. Those meetings would be hopefully like an hour long, recorded, made publicly available to further highlight and express what the BPs are doing and present that to all of the different stakeholders in the community. Additionally, we would also present the financial statement of this proxy because I can get into how proxies work, but there is an opportunity to generate revenue if token holders choose not to receive their voter reward. And that then can become a treasury for the proxy that can pay for the web hosting service. I think it's important to pay for some of the time of the volunteers to go into this, but then anything over that would go back to the Eden Treasury to then fill the coffers for future elections. But I want to say, though, that the goal of this is not to fund Eden. That isn't the goal. The goal is more so to aggregate the community voice, pick BPs based on what the Eden members think are appropriate, and then use that to help have influence into who the top 21 are, which then could lead to actually turning on the inflation spigot. Because a lot of our proposals are going to be kind of useless if we don't get proper funding. And we need the BPs really in order to make that happen. Whether it's RAM fees or turning on inflation, we need to have some sort of influence as to the BPs and what they're doing. And this might be a method by which we can achieve that goal. Control of the proxy is up for debate. It could be a person spearheading it or an MSIG with the board, which is what I would prefer to do. So if I move forward, I would set up an MSIG with the board. So any funding is approved by that board and any movement of funds. To quickly go into how the rewards actually work and how setting this up. So Gener EOS has a proxy creating tool. This is what it looks like. It's straightforward. They charge a 2% fee to set up the proxy, but then also have the funds come to and from the BPs to pay the token holders and remit back to the BPs. So there's a process there that's covered with their fee. So of the 100% potential revenue that can generate from this, 2% would go back to Gener EOS. I would suggest we have 18% that goes back to the BPs. And that's how these normally work. You give percentage of the voter reward back to the BPs themselves. And that can range on average between 15 and 20%. So I'm going to go slightly less than 20 and see if that's acceptable. And then that would leave 80% left over that you either just give straight back to the token holders, to the token holders who vote with the proxy, or we could have another proxy that's a pure donation type where token holders don't get back any kickbacks and they forego those rewards to the proxy itself to then pay for the services, pay for upgrades, and then to actually fill up the Eden coffer with leftover. It could be a hybrid as well. We could do a split 40-40, but that's kind of to be determined. I'd also like to set up a gamification with NFTs. So if say accounts donate 100% of their rewards back to the Eden proxy, we give them some sort of NFT badge that shows so on their account, you'd have a kind of participation and a Good Samaritan type of reward that maybe other Eden products could reference that proxy, reference that NFT or badge to then give them special services or rewards. How we disperse the rewards. So I think there will be a fee. It probably will be small, but to basically host the data, to have all the information that we gather, have the metrics, have all the votes, have a history of the votes, a history of communication with BPs, any interviews, any correspondence, have it in one place so everyone can go and see that. So that's, the data, metrics, KPI, that'll all be hopefully it would be gathered from various sources, but then collected nicely and presented in one location. And full transparency is an absolute priority with this, whether it comes to the data, the votes, the funds, everything will be on-chain tracked and fully available. Nothing will be kept obfuscated or not available. I also think there might be a use for funds to do maintenance and improvements on this proxy. Part of that will be to actually create this NFT piece that doesn't really exist as of yet, but it can be done. I have touched base with the Gener EOS team. They can do it. It would just be something that would have to come down the road, or any additional proxy features we could add. The Gener EOS team, they work on this and they can do that. Again, I also think it's important to have compensation for those who work on this. This would include myself if I ran this, and others of the team like Drill Sergeant Zeus and some guys who spend a lot of time volunteering, aggregating data. I think there should be, not again, transparent, so you'd see how much people are getting, but just nominal. I mean, I think volunteerism is really important, but you can't volunteer forever and expect to be able to, unless we're independently wealthy and able to pull that off, you need something. And it also just helps motivate you a little more if you're getting at least a couple bucks for your time. I think that goes a long way. I've donated all of my time thus far since becoming the Satoshi, and I could do it for a while longer, but at some point I'm going to have to be able to make money because I'm not independently wealthy. Open and transparent key. All fees paid will be open and transparent, tracked on blockchain and listed out so people can look, just like I did in my summary with the board of what we did with the first spend. The links to all transactions are there, so everything will be open. The Eden Treasury could, again, if there's overages and we have a lot of members who wish to donate, not even members, but just EOS community, it's open to anybody. If a lot choose to not receive their rewards and this proxy does really well, which we don't know, it's an unknown, but if it does do well, there could be some funding that actually would be reasonable that could go back to Eden, and that would be the point, right? Anything over what would be reasonable to keep for the individuals and for the services would go straight back to Eden for future. And the NFT piece, just to finish on that, the idea is to, if possible, every month an account based on how much EOS and the duration of their stake, they'd get an NFT badge. The badges would be increased rarity based on how much EOS and how long it remains staked. So say a year into having 1,000 EOS staked and you've done 12 months of staking, you get like a more rare NFT that month than you did the month before or the month before that. And then we can even do something really cool like what the Finny guys did, where you can burn and combine your NFTs to make more unique and rare NFTs. So kind of gamifying the whole thing. And again, if future Eden projects can then reference those NFTs to provide rewards, that would be another incentive for even non-Eden members, but any products that come out of Eden, perhaps having this community service, giving your tokens and foregoing your 2% reward. I think that would be something that can then be rewarded via some other product or service that can leverage those NFTs that are there. It's cheap to start. It basically takes almost nothing. It's 5 EOS to start it with Gener EOS, so it's very cheap. And then I want to give some money back to Edgar from EOS Costa Rica for setting up the EOS rate tool. And then also he was willing to, they're going to add a filter so you can filter the EOS accounts to be just Eden members. So we're going to reference the Eden members against their inputs. So we're only using the subjective inputs from Eden members and not any EOS account, because that could be gamed. And then I also like to commission John Heater, who you all know from Boyd, I'm sure. And he had a very comprehensive EOS BP dashboard that's been since decommissioned, but he could revive that with some new metrics. And that would be yet another community hosted or provided data point for some of these objective metrics of the BPs, which the more the merrier, I'd say. Some fees to set up the NFTs. So that will come later. That won't be right away. But if there's enough interest, then I think that would be something, and I'll get some help from the Crypto Rota guys to do that right, because they're pretty smart about making the gamification of NFTs. And yeah, that's basically the pitch. That was fast. Hope that was okay.
Good
You're on
idea.
mute.
Especially the current 21 BPs will decide not to support Eden, then this proxy would come very handy.
Well, that's the point, right? We're all going to have great ideas, and if we don't get funding, it's irrelevant at that point. Like if we can't demonstrate, it's also because Eden hasn't grown as fast as some might have hoped, right? So that doesn't shine highly as to the interest necessarily. But if we can do a proxy and that aggregates a lot of votes, it's another opportunity that's far less friction for token holders to participate, because joining Eden is a bit of work and you got to, there's a bit of hoops to jump through. But to donate to a proxy, or even if I think 2 proxies are key. One is a donation proxy, you forego your rewards, and another one is where you get all your regular kickbacks you'd expect to get as a voter, but at least you're still aggregating your voice behind of the proxy. So the Eden members proxy that's picking the top 21 or the 30 BPs they'd vote for could still be the people who want to get their money back. That's fine. I pass no judgment on that. But then those who want to donate, also excellent, because then you can help fund the process and I think grow it that way. But yeah, if we can't get the top 21 if we can't show that we're actually a powerful voice in the community, they may never elect to support what we're doing here. So it's kind of that chicken and egg, right? We got great ideas and no funding, or do we wait for funding and then have great ideas? I personally, I'd like to show that we've got great ideas and the community's here, and then use that to request the funding.
So what's the marginal benefit over, say, me just going to blocks.io or wherever and opening a proxy that's the same thing,
Oh, you could copy it. Yeah, this is nothing proprietary. Yeah, it would just be, I would try to use my influence thus far in the community and my reputation and hopefully trust that I've earned in the past 2 months, and use that plus the content I've started to create. So I'll keep creating more content through everything EOS. So sort of promote this proxy, try to fill in if I can where Colin Talks Crypto left the EOS community. I think I'd like to sort of fill that void a bit with another quote unquote influencer of sorts. And he had a pretty successful proxy. So I think if I can follow in that path and just be very EOS focused and positive, then that would make this proxy maybe stand out. But there would be nothing stopping you from doing the exact same thing. And maybe that's the way to do it too. The more people that form a proxy. The key though is how do you pick the BPs, right? Which BPs are we choosing? And that's the part that makes it unique. That isn't proprietary either. Like EOS Costa Rica is going to add that filter for Eden members to anybody. So there's nothing proprietary there. but I would just try to use the content that I'm creating and my voice to attempt to aggregate the most that I can under one banner to be able to point to and say, look, we've got these many these token holders, and this is, look at the size of our proxy, and that hopefully then helps convince other skeptical of Eden. Is this thing going to do anything? Well, maybe this is another thing you can point to and say, yeah, well, they've aggregated and look how many tokens, and now they're actually influencing who the top 21 are, which I think is a far more important long-term goal that we need to sort of tackle, right? Do we have the right top 21? Maybe we do. Maybe we don't. Maybe it turns out that some of those BPs aren't communicative and don't answer questions and aren't giving back. I don't want to pass judgment about vote buying and any of that. That's not my game. My want to collect the voice, be a voice for the token holders, and aggregate that to collect. So we have like that 1 + 1 = 3, and direct all of our token weight and kind of use delegated proof of stake like it was kind of meant to. That's it. Do you want to go next with your pitch, man? And what should we call you? I feel like the letters are hard to articulate. Vlad? Okay, cool.
If there are some fireworks, do you hear, or it's okay? Give me a sec. I'm gonna close the window.
It's not too bad. Is there a celebration? Must be something going on.
It's a good sign.
Yeah, better than gunshots in the distance.
Yeah.
Having a birthday.
Ah, cool.
My name is Vlad. In 2017, when I was doing research on different chains, I got most attracted to EOS due to the scalability, approach to the governance, and even more so due to the vision of changing the societies for the better. So I've been with EOS before the mainnet launched. Initially, I was just on the sidelines as an investor. I think there's only 1 or 2 Everything EOS episodes that I have ever missed. But after some time, I understood that the best way that I can contribute is by building dApps myself. I didn't have any programming experience, but I decided to quit my 9 to 5 in PricewaterhouseCoopers to go all in on EOS and learn how to write smart contracts. So after that, I started 2 projects on the mainnet. One is called Consortium, which I would say is a more advanced version of the referendum system. The second one is CTF. It's an app that enables to create first ETF on EOS. So if this was a real election, I would expand the pitch on how exactly the funds would be used to develop the ETF further. But for the real election to happen, though, we need more members in the Eden. And one way to do it is to do marketing. So in previous round, I promised if I would get elected, I would write an article introducing Eden and key concepts from Dan's book, then packing it into a tweet and making a retweeting contest where I would select randomly one retweeter, and all the EOS that I would receive would go to him. So if I'm going to get elected further, the retweeter will get 110 EOS. And if I'm going to get 2000 EOS, I would discuss with you and other community members how to best spend it to do marketing for Eden. Some ideas I've had are paid ads on CoinMarketCap, sponsored article on Cointelegraph, some graphic design or explanatory video about Eden and more equal animals. So yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah, pretty straightforward.
So I have a question. So if you were to win the 2000, would you spend it all on a Twitter giveaway, or is that just?
No, I think I think it's too much for a Twitter giveaway.
I think so too.
So 110 would go to the Twitter giveaway, but 2000 we will have to decide. But I think it's, yeah, since we have only 150 members and the invites somehow slowed down, but actually it has to be an exponential increase. So we need to do something about it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And that's one of the big things for me since the very beginning. At least when I was involved, I came in late to the EOS community, probably somewhere last year. But it's just like I've seen so much money that Block One and these other people have, and they're developing incredible software, but there's some sort of a disconnect where they either don't see value or else don't seek out these sort of collaborations as well as these opportunities to do very simple things, like Twitter giveaways and things like that. So that's something that I think is very valuable. And it's also related to my proposal, because we would allow people to come up with these ideas and then anybody could do it as well. But yeah, I just want to say I think that's extremely valuable, and regardless of what happens, I hope that you continue in that pursuit for the benefit of all.
Question, I'm sorry, what was your name again? CXVNK? Vlad? Are you an Eden member as well? Okay, all right. So, and I know Doug, you are as well, because I saw you just got in there. Okay, my 2 cents in this whole thing between the three of you guys there. I like, Doug, what you're going for. I like what you're going for, Vlad, as well. But so far as fleshing out an idea, Chris has got more, it seems like more accountability, planned in there. So that's, I'm just going to throw my 2 cents out there that, and I'm not saying that, I know, Doug, since you're a member, you're not going to just take off with the funds. And I'm sure, Vlad, you probably wouldn't as well. But to me, it looks like there's more. I mean, Chris has got more of a transparency. I don't know. That's probably it. And not to say that you wouldn't, or either one of you other guys, but that's where I'm at least leaning more towards now. Convince me otherwise, I guess, would be what I would say. So
one thing I can say, I don't have a necessary use yet. If I were, because it's a random winner. Like if I only get to the next round and I don't win, because this is a tough one, right? It's random.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have a particular use per se for that extra 2,000 if I were to randomly win it. So with that though, I'm willing to take, if you think the proxy is a good idea, because part of what I need is a bit of a mandate. If I don't get the mandate from the community to start this proxy, I won't start it. So it's kind of, there's a few people who are running with this. I'm not the only guy, because I put it out there, and the pitch deck that Josh made is out there. We shared it. So anybody can run with the proxy idea. But if no one gets to the final round, it's tough to say the community wants that. So that's sort of where I was hoping to get there, just to have the mandate to do that. But it didn't have a goal or a focus with those extra funds. I was thinking maybe I'd give it to the Chinese, Korean, and Spanish community to have them do their own trial election to grow membership that way and interest. But maybe that's overly complicating it. Maybe we need to get good at the North American, English speaking Eden first before we start branching out too fast. So I'm open to like absorbing some of your idea, Vlad and Doug, into if I randomly get selected, then maybe I make a commitment to give you guys part of the funds to continue with what you're doing.
Yeah, no, and Doug, I think your proposal, you're more fleshed out with it. So I think that's a positive thing there too. So, and Vlad, I think that's all good. It's all good, all of y'all. So
sure. And I'll also go ahead and say I do have a plan for the 2000 EOS. I'm going to keep half, and I think that's I think that's important, is to give away half and to keep half. The way I've written it is 20% is going to go to the EOS power up, And that's something that, you know, Chris inspired. And I've been living in Latin America for 4 years. So I've met a lot of people who I know would benefit with EOS, and we've all seen what's going on in Venezuela. Yeah, I want to support that with that. The other 30% is going towards incentivizing the first 12 people who contribute meaningful ideas. And that's not pulling an issue, that's not accepting a pull request. That is people besides me who contribute something meaningful, something fleshed out that another person could then either adopt into the bylaws or, you know, create a proposal from. So if you do win, Chris, and you want to put some of that, I will take whatever you want to donate, and you know, we can set up the repo and still incentivize those first people into that share good ideas.
And do you need to be a coder? Like, is this purely like a text ideas type of? Because I've never really used GitHub, but I understand it's more code focused. Is that accurate?
It's definitely accurate, and this is actually, you know, we had this conversation in our last group about, you know, is everybody going to be involved? And the truth is no. And with the whole elders thing, that's an idea that I've sort of learned in studying the various, you know, if you look at how you form consensus within a church, right? Number one, it could be the pastor makes all the decisions. Number two is you could try to do congressional consensus, and that means everybody has to agree. And number three is you have some sort of a council of elders, right? And in practice, a single leader is often fallible. You know, there's some character flaw. It doesn't work out. The second problem with just straight up consensus is people have big mouths and they don't like to change. So you get a lot of energy wasted on these people who just want to be heard and don't want to form consensus. The third way is an elders council, and it works in, you know, sort of better than the other two. And obviously we're here to make a different model, but I think we got a
real quick. Sorry, 10 minutes. Just giving you guys the, okay, 10 minutes.
Okay.
I'm out of here. Keep going, my friend.
All right. So yeah, so the whole idea of the elders, these are the people who are the administrators of the repo, and they must be coders. You know, the requirements are you have to either contribute code to that particular repo, so you don't have to necessarily be really tech savvy, because the repo is supposed to also include social suggestions, which other people can take into proposals. But yeah, so you do have to have some code, and you have to have a year within the EOS community. So I wouldn't even be eligible to be a member, because I don't consider myself an active community member for more than a year. And then
Be tough to prove either way.
Yeah, you could do by EOS account age, and then look at
okay.
Yeah, and look at sort of where, if they have active transactions within a year.
Yeah, and the GitHub thing is really more, not necessarily as much programming as it is markdown language, and that's pretty simple. I mean,
yeah,
I'm trying to teach myself GitHub, and I know I've participated in a few things just doing spell checking on the markdown things. So it's, you know, it's possible to do, you know, not just, don't let the programming scare you, I guess. So.
Vlad, I'm curious, like, you code, you've taught yourself to code. Do you have, like, what are your thoughts on Doug's idea, generally speaking? Just because I don't know enough to really have an opinion. Like, it makes sense, but I just don't. You do this. So because it kind of sounds like it could be a Slack. If it's an idea aggregator, that's what I noticed. A few of us have started the Slack thing, which is like a sorted Telegram. I'd never used Slack before, but I see it's like you have channels, and then it's more efficient than like a Telegram. I don't know if it's any better. I mean, again, I don't know. And the other thing I'm wondering is how much overlap is this going to have with, say, what Pomelo is doing, and projects are going to go there, and so yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Vlad? Sorry.
Well, I think one thing that the EOS.io chains are missing are like some kind of repository where all the open source contracts could be aggregated, so to say. So for instance, EOS Studio had for some time had this various smart contracts available, and they updated this repository, and it was really useful for me as a developer who started to have it in one place. And if this idea could develop into something like that, that would be very useful.
Okay, and then Douglas, like what? So say if you guys agree to push me forward, and then I give you funding back to work on your particular thing, what would be a reasonable amount to sort of do a less holistic version? You know, less for your time, less for the elders or whatever.
Yeah. Well, here, if you want to do that, what I could do is, as long as it's a number that's divisible by 12, I think that we can still incentivize these first things. If I'm not going to do the funding, or if I don't get the funding, I'm not going to, or I may or may not contribute my thing, because I have a lot of sort of time commitments, and that's actually something I was going to bring up, and why I would, why you are a more, I guess, desirable candidate, because you've shown that you are dedicated to the EOS community, and you have the time and to make yourself known and things like that. Anyway, to get back to your question, anything that you would like to throw that is divisible by 12, whether it be 36, 120, if you give 120 EOS, then we could give offer 10 EOS to the top or the first 10 people that go on. I think that's a reasonable size incentive.
But in general, I think it will not have traction in the beginning. So in a sense, I support Chris's idea right now more, especially seeing what have you done after being elected in the first
Went all
election.
in, that's for sure.
Yeah. I would agree, and I guess I'm going to cast my vote for Chris, and I'm going to be following you, Doug. For future references and stuff too. So, and you as well, Vlad. So, my vote's for Chris.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, my vote is as well.
Yeah, I will also vote for Chris. Yeah, I think that he is more leader than me, and I can still make the repo, no big deal. Yeah, I'm happy to be here to learn. I design these systems as well. So yeah, I'm happy to learn from this process. And the biggest learning as far as from any process that is bringing people together is that you can't write it all in code. There are people, and you have social things. And one thing I see Chris, he's already saying, how can I help you out, and reaching back to me and saying, I think this is a good idea. What's the EOS I can help you to do that with. And that's a very good trait in a leader. So yeah, I would also like to, I'll vote for you too, Chris.
Thanks, guys. I'll vote for myself, obviously. And what I'll do, so I won't make any commitments now, Douglas. I really I do legitimately like what you're saying, even though I can't code. But apparently it doesn't all have to be that complicated. But I'll see what the next round comes. I think whoever's in that board are going to have some ideas. I'd like to see that. My thought was have that board discuss in advance of the randomization and just agree. We'll just split it equally, regardless, because I'm not a huge fan of this idea of randomizing the winner. I'd rather have it be based on the discussion and the board come to the conclusion of who deserves those funds, and that would be more, more conscious decision. But I understand the idea of not having this gamed. But maybe that's where the board then decides in advance. Maybe we just say, what you're doing actually needs the funds. So even if I win it, I'm going to give them to you for this, or however we decide to split it. So I won't make any commitments yet, Douglas, but I will definitely bring up what you've told me about in the next and see. And if there is an opportunity, then I will certainly, and you'll be able to watch the recording after. So I'll certainly see if there's a way we can at least try to kickstart what you're doing, even though it won't be to the level that you had proposed. maybe a little bit's better than nothing, and it just gets the ball rolling, and then there'll be future
Yeah.
elections, and then people can then run with what you started and then add to it, right? In a true community sense.
Sure. Sounds good.
Okay. Right on. We're just in time.
Hey,
5
I
minutes
gotta
left
ask,
on our counter.
I gotta ask, Chris, is it Barnes or is it Barnes? 'Cause
Barnes.
I've heard, I don't know who it was. It was like Chris Barnes.
Yeah.
No. It is Barnes. I figured, but I thought I'd ask anyhow.
Yeah. No. Fair enough. It happens. It happens a lot. Yeah. People. Yeah. Just the E is silent.
Yeah.
My ancestors built big red buildings, I guess.
Yeah. There you go. We got a lot of them in Iowa.
Right on.
That's
Awesome.
good.
Well, it's been great chatting, fellas, and Douglas, I'm really envy is not a great trait, but I'm envious of your view and where you are right now in the world. I think it looks quite beautiful, and good for you for
Yeah.
being there and dedicating your time there.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
how
I
is
love
the lockdown as far as situation for you? Because my pastor's wife is from Cusco there, and she would like to go back and visit her aunt and stuff, but she's, they're saying how Peru is like one of the tighter places,
It really is. Like to get into the mall, you have to wear 2 face masks, like one on top of the other, and a face shield, like a plastic face shield. Like, but I mean, like during COVID, I've been in Colombia, I've spent 6 months in Mexico, and I've been in Peru. And the general consensus is like, if you're in a big city, they're more strict. And if you're in a small town like here, there's pretty much no restrictions, except for if you go into a restaurant, you're gonna have like 1 mask.
right.
But yeah, like in Lima, I was just in Lima for a month or so, and it was bad. Like you can't go out after 9 p.m. Like there's police on the streets. Like, yeah, it's not a good thing. It's not a good time. But also at the same time, like Peru in particular are not super good at like enforcing things. So it's only like the big supermarkets, that are big companies that are really, really strict with the enforcing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
2 masks. Come on.
Yeah. No, the first time they told me that, like I was wearing a face mask because I like the shield, and I had 1 mask, and I was just like, what are you talking about?
Where's
But
you
everybody's doing it.
your space suit?
Yeah.
Craziness. I've filled out the Google Sheet, guys, with everyone's vote, so it's all taken care of. And I did hit record, so I'll get that rendered and uploaded.
All right.
So thank you for all of your confidence. I appreciate it, guys. I really do, and I'll try to make you proud and keep this train moving forward. And yeah, we'll be in touch.
Good luck in the next round.
Thanks, guys.
Good luck. Yeah.
It literally is luck. So right.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye, guys.
All right. Bye.
Brought up is secondary to me. So